So I see a lot of blackpilling on the online right where people claim that nothing is ever going to change within the political system and the only way that things can be changed is through some form of radical revolution, which of course nobody has the testosterone levels to make happen right now. Now, is there any truth to that statement? Perhaps, but nonetheless, I do think that recently in the United States, we actually are seeing some changes within the political system that are radical. Now, some of these, as I've said, I don't even really agree with, but there's been one that has been proposed lately that I actually do think is a massive step in the right direction, which is repealing no fault divorce. Now, for those who don't know, no fault divorce is basically the policy where somebody can divorce their partner without any grounds. And in practice, what this often leads to is alimony payments where the person who's being divorced has to pay money to the person who divorced them in perpetuity. And also, it leads to unfair child custody agreements where the person who's being divorced basically never gets to see their kids afterward. Now, I think in something like 90% of cases, it's the woman who initiates the divorce and it's the woman who benefits from it. She's the one who gets the transfer payments in alimony, and she's the one who gets the dominant child custody, like overwhelmingly. So basically, what the current system is legalized theft by women against men. Not only that, but also legalized stealing children, like by women against men, like women stealing children from their fathers, essentially. Now, in my opinion, getting rid of no fault divorce entirely might actually be a step too far, because I do kind of think you should have the right to divorce a partner if you want to, but what you shouldn't have the right to do is just steal their money and steal the children from them. That is just despicable. But nonetheless, you know what? I've realized one thing I've increasingly realized is in the real world, you can't always get what you want. And I don't want to make the perfect the enemy of the good. So even if I would favor that kind of policy, which is a little bit in between, repealing no fault divorce, I would take that over what we have now. And frankly, from a Machiavellian perspective, it makes sense if the goal is to like demand more than you actually get. Like, to shoot for repealing no fault divorce and to make it look like a compromise when you manage to repeal alimony for cases of no fault divorce or mandate equal or fair child custody in cases of no fault divorce. That would be, in my opinion, like that could be what they're doing. And if it is, then that's very genius. Kind of like Putin saying he wants all of the Ukraine when really I think they don't want all of the Ukraine. Like sort of overshooting your mark to try to make it look like a compromise when you get something that lands in the middle. It's basic, if you read The Prince by Machiavelli, this is basic, like strategy for any kind of argument or dispute. So yeah, I'm really on board with this, and I think it shows that things are changing and can change within the existing political system to some extent. We've also seen some radical legislation in red states. Like again, it's red states where they're talking about repealing no-fault divorce. I forget which states exactly, but similarly, we've seen some very radical anti-abortion laws and also extending the death penalty to cases other than murder in red states, which again are things that would have been unthinkable even 5 years ago. Now, I don't agree with these changes as much. Like I support repealing no fault divorce more than I support these other changes that have been made. But nonetheless, regardless of my personal opinion on the exact specifics of the issue, the bigger picture here is that it shows that radical change is possible, because these are things that would have been unthinkable 5 years ago. And yeah, I mean, people can say, well, these aren't really the core issues. It's like, okay, maybe with abortion and the death penalty, you could argue they're throwing conservatives a bone. But when it comes to something like no fault divorce, that's not just throwing them a bone. That's like throwing them a massive chunk of flesh. That's like a core issue. Like, I think the core issues to liberals and leftists are race, gender, and sexuality. And everything else emanates from those issues. And same with conversely on the right. Like, those are the main issues of identity politics. And I mean, no fault divorce strikes right at the heart of the gender issue because it's one of the main ways in which women control men. Like, I'm going to be honest, it's the main reason why I haven't tried getting married. Like, I've had like potentially, at least with one woman I've known, an opportunity, and I don't know, it's just no fault divorce scares me. And it's not even about the specific woman. Like, honestly, I wouldn't trust any woman with today's no fault divorce laws. Like, it's awful. Like, it's basically legalized theft against men by women. So yeah, I mean, I think these laws are one of the main ways in which men are controlled because they're constantly afraid of women ruining them financially. So, like, this is part of the reason why there's never any social change is because men, they're afraid of the women in their lives, and the women in their lives are very often liberal or leftist. And I think if you were to attack this, the entire liberal left structure could start tumbling down. Like, I think this is a very fundamental issue. So, yeah, I really hope they're able to push this legislation because I think this would be amazing.